Steyn. Join me as I do interviews with leaders in the field of artificial intelligence from across the world. We speak about the business relevance of artificial intelligence, and we also speak about the future. Is it to be feared or to be embraced? Please subscribe at my website for updates on future interviews. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Nick Bradshaw, and what an amazing CV he has. He's the co-founder and CEO of AI Media. He's also the co-founder and the host of AI TV. He's the co-founder and co-editor of the Synapse magazine. And he's also involved with Africa's largest business-to-business AI innovation and trade-focused community, hosting the upcoming AI Expo Africa conference. He's an artificial intelligence evangelist and a fourth industrial revolution community builder. Let's listen to the conversation.
Nick Bradshaw, thank you so much for making the time. How's things in glorious Cape Town? You see the jealousy.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to take part in the webinar series. Cape Town, like the rest of the world, we're all dealing with lockdown as best we can, and the move to online. Obviously, we're having this conversation online, and the content will go online. And I think a lot of people now have accepted that this is the way to go. So yeah, we're in that online club as well.
You're right. And so, Nick, what are you busy with at the moment that you can share? So what's the exciting things that you're doing in the space of AI and business? And we'll get to the conference a little later on, but what's a day in the life of Dr. Nick like at the moment?
Well, it's about sort of 6 to 7 Zoom calls a day at the moment. I think if we just sort of step back a little bit, I've been in the tech industry for almost 25 years now. And, I started out, I'm a trained chemist.
Okay.
Not many people know that. So I've actually shifted, from something I was trained in doing into then a journey of discovery. I've worked in the corporate environment, I've worked in the startup environment, I've worked in government, and essentially the learning journey that I've been on has been sort of, after I left university, self-taught. So a lot of it's through experience.
Yes.
And so I think part of my day is always devoted to learning, what is going on in this industry, because in the 4IR space, and 4IR means AI in broad terms, IoT, big data, analytics, cloud, smart devices. There's always something new to learn. So I think every single day I'm digesting content that my first hour of the day is spent really looking who's posting what's new, what's happening, and then getting on and talking to people in our industry. We've broadly become almost the de facto trade body for 4IR, certainly in our region. We run our magazine, so we're always looking at articles for that as well. So yeah, every day goes like that. It's busy and it's productive, hopefully.
Okay, super. Just for interest's sake, almost no one I know ended up doing as a career what they studied for. So very few people know this, but I'm a trained theologian. Ended up in IT. Also self-taught, not very technical. Advantage, I think, with that is that when we speak to customers, it's not about tools and frameworks and what I call propeller head stuff. It's understanding the business problems. We can later bring all the smart people into the room, And then just to your other point, I also read avidly on especially AI and 4AR and all that. But it's changing so quickly that I sometimes feel daunted that I'm not going to keep up. Is that what you feel sometimes?
I think there's two ways you can go with any discipline: theology, chemistry, computer science. You can become a deep technical specialist, and that's great, and that's perfectly valid and a very rewarding route to go. Or you can become more of a generalist, and that's certainly me. I'm the latter. I'm a generalist. But when you're talking to certainly the enterprise community, the customer that's sitting in a bank or an insurance company or retail or whatever, a manufacturer, really what you're talking to customers and those people about is change. You're talking to them about a change journey, and technology is part of that journey, but it's not the most important part of that journey. Because essentially, and I say this to everyone I meet, essentially technology is broadly dumb. Even we're talking about AI, machine learning, deep learning, it's only as good as the data you give it, or it's only as good as the ideas in the people of the heads, ideas in the heads of the people that build these systems. And we know, obviously, these systems can learn, and that's part of the appeal. But really, a CIO who's embarking on a change journey and has to report to the board to say, well, why are we shifting from this platform to this platform? Why are we leaving the pricing to a robot if we introduce automation using artificial intelligence? That's risky, right? So tell me, if we embark on this change journey, have we got the organizational strategy aligned? Have we got the people aligned? Have we got the processes aligned? Have we got the policies and the ethics aligned before you get anywhere near the technology? So I think that's what I've spent most of my life doing, is having those conversations with people. Are you essentially ready to change? And you can actually quantify that. There's a lot of easy matrix checklists that you can go through. And essentially, number one, if you haven't got a vision as part of a strategy to embark on the change, then forget it. Don't go anywhere near the technology, because ultimately the technology won't fail. The change program will fail.
True.
And we've gone way beyond when I started in my career with software, we were sort of going from client server technologies, looking at things like auto code generation, looking at auto test. And there was an element of automation creeping in then, but there was a hell of a lot of customization, a hell of a lot of bespoke development. And now actually, for a lot of the, if you look at the Amazon suite, if you look at Azure or Microsoft, a lot of what you're doing is configuring. A lot of the building blocks are pre-built for you already. So, not only is the technology paradigm changing, but also you have to understand from the client's perspective, this is a change program, and they have umpteen different change programs running at any one time. So if you don't understand that, then you can be the best technical developer in the world. That product won't succeed in that environment.
It is so true. I often, when I speak to customers or colleagues or connections or whatever, and we speak about AI and related technologies, and I ask the question, to do what? That's normally where the conversation becomes uncomfortably quiet, because it's seen as almost a silver bullet, if you would. But I think people, and maybe to your point, organizations and business leaders underestimate the massive cultural and people impact that such an endeavor will have. And it should be a people-driven thing. And then, by the way, it's AI or it's RPA or whatever. So, and I think that's where a lot of these initiatives fall flat, because if we think it's just a tech, but we don't realize the massive change that it's going to take to our organizations.
Yeah, and I think also, if you put yourself in the seat of the CIO or the head of HR or the head of security in a large retailer, for example, yes, they're going to be interested in maybe AI being applied to dynamic pricing, for example. But actually, what they're really worried about is the core structure that runs their business. So their supply chain, if you're a retailer, that's the most important thing in your supply chain. And actually, I remember in one of the meetings I went to with a retailer, I said, what's the top 3 things that in your supply chain that worry you? Expecting to have like 3 kind of answers aligned to IT. And actually, the number 1 issue was the cost of diesel. So I think when you go in as a software specialist or a vendor to talk to a client, you often realize that actually some of the problems they're dealing with are not what your technology can solve. They're just much bigger traditional issues about running a very, very large company, and the price of fuel might be a very important thing for them at that moment in time.
Yes. Nick, if somebody is either wanting to launch out in a career of working in artificial intelligence or looking at starting a startup of sorts, what's the best advice you think that they could receive from somebody like you? Or I always want to say, what's the thing that you wish you knew 5 or 10 or 20 years ago that you know now that you would give as advice to somebody like that?
Well, I mean, the first advice is never too late to start. I think the I think they did some analysis of successful startups and the age of founders. The mean age of successful startups, the founders, is 41, I think. So, and I'm beyond that now. I'm on the wrong side of 50. But so first of all, it's never too late to start. Number two, it's never been easier to start. Infrastructure is free. I mean, if you sign up for AWS Activate or the startup program with Microsoft, or you get in on the NVIDIA Inception program, there's all sorts of things that you can gain from that platform program, which are free. So free storage, free compute, credits for building solutions, etc. Now, I mean, even, there's things you can do now you couldn't even do 24 months ago, particularly in the space that you and I are in. So it's a lot easier than you think. But in terms of what you want to execute on in your business, start with the end in mind. Okay, and when I say that, I mean, where do you want your business to end up? Do you want to do the kind of Uber, IPO, grow make a unicorn? That's what everybody sees on TV. That's the stuff that goes on the news. Or do you want to just build a business that can grow and can be sold or exited for a reasonable sum of money, that adds value along the way? And if you do want to do that, then what are the things that you need to do to, one, grow your business and launch your business? And then secondly, what are the things you need to do to then position your business for being sold? There's a third option, which is you just want to build a business to sustain you for the rest of your life, a lifestyle business. And that's perfectly valid as well. So I think I always say to young entrepreneurs, I've given a couple of lectures, one at UCT, where I said there's a room about 100 young computer science undergraduates, postgraduates, and I said, if you want to start a business, start with the end in mind, because that then gives you a laser focus about what it is that you will ultimately end up doing. And if you don't have an answer to that question and you're sort of 6 months in, then you have to sort of step back a little bit and say, hang on a minute, what are we doing here? But I think from a tech entrepreneur perspective, it's not too late to start. Most of what you can get hold of to build your business is broadly free, and start with the end in mind.
Yeah, that's good advice. Next, I want to ask you about South Africa and Africa. How are we doing compared to the rest of the world when it comes to this kind of technology? What are you seeing as the trends, or maybe the problems we're facing, things that's keeping us back, and so forth?
Okay, I mean, first of all, Africa is a massive piece of real estate. I don't think people realize. I mean, our logo has the map of Africa in it, and the little 6 dots in our logo are really about our vision about connecting up the ecosystems across Africa. So Africa is like a community of communities, is a good phrase for it. There's 54 countries, and they're all at different stages of economic and social development. Some are further ahead than others. If you look at Egypt and Tunisia, you look at Nigeria, Ghana, you look at Kenya, South Africa, arguably that's where a lot of the that's where a lot of activity going on, and that's really a reflection of that's because they've got more mature economies. But when you look at some of the stimulation and activities which are going on at the grassroots, if you look at something like Data Science Nigeria, you look at Zindi, which is a data science challenge platform for Africa, the Africa version of Kaggle, there's a massive number of young people wanting to get involved in the movement, if I can use that phrase. So the Data Science Nigeria mission is to train a million young people in data science over the next 10 years. Zindi has 15,000 people on their platform. You look at communities like AI Kenya, AI Ghana, you've got stuff now emerging in Senegal, Morocco. We had a visitor at our show last year from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is a landlocked, it's a landlocked poor country, one of the poorest countries in the world, and yet there was a delegate at our event. So I think everybody's broadly aware of the revolution, if you want to call it that, but how much of a stake can people have in that varies tremendously. So if you look at national strategies, for example, so you look at China, Japan, you look at Canada, France, the UK, they've got very mature strategies about how they want to take advantage of this opportunity. They have policies, working groups at the government level, strategies that go with that. And I think still, and I remain corrected, is the Kenyan government is the only government at the national level that has a strategy for AI. They published it last July. Very well put together document. So I think, you know, your national government has to set the scene and the surrounding environment. But most of the activity is coming from the bottom up. It's coming from entrepreneurs. It's coming from businesses and academics that are either doing research, launching businesses, and selling products. Quite a few companies are taking third-party products, launching them here in the market. You know, a lot of the RPA players have a healthy partner ecosystem here. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. But you know, government is never going to keep up with what's now, just purely because of the inertia that they have, and also because of the level of innovation that's happening in this space. I spoke to one of the platform providers, and they said they can't even keep up with what they're doing in their own company, and they work inside the wire. So to expect a government minister to know all of this stuff, and you know, they can only do so much. So yeah, we're seeing progress. I think uptake is growing, but I think the national strategies have still got a long way to go.
True. Nick, I see one of the logos there behind you is the AI TV. I've been following that on social media, and it's very valuable. So tell us a bit about that.
Okay, I mean, AI TV was something we launched last year. So, I mean, the AI Media Group, I mean, we've sort of, as I say, become this sort of non-official de facto trade body in the absence of one. I mean, really the origins of why the company exists was in 2017. I'd sold my previous business and I wanted to embrace 4IR, AI, everything to do with it. I wanted to learn. And so I was going to technical meetups, and I went to a few sort of deep learning in Daba X and a few other kind of events. And I was actually finding that they were very technical, very academic, talking a lot about research and the latest emerging tech. And that was fantastic, don't get me wrong. But there actually wasn't a business community. There wasn't actually a group of people talking about, okay, so that's the theory. Now, where's the product? I want to buy the product. So that's why we formed AI Media. That's why we launched AI Expo. And the AI TV and the Synapse magazine, which is the trade publication that we launched, really spun off the back of that. We noticed that the tech media landscape is very fragmented, and they still have a very old model around advertising. So your news is my advertising revenue. And so we wanted to disrupt that by saying, give us your article, we'll publish it for free. You can advertise in our magazine for free. Let's do an interview with you on AI TV and put it on YouTube. Let's put it where people go. So really, we've tried to foster an environment which caters for the business end user, but at the same time, we want to signpost that information to younger people, make them aware of educational opportunities. And the YouTube channel, the magazine, is just another way of reaching that community. So yeah, I mean, it's not quite perfect, but you know, it's a start.
Of course, I'll definitely put the links to the TV and the magazine in particular, and you know, also the event. I love the magazine, Nick. Firstly, it's just from a look and feel point of view, such a high quality production, I feel, which is great. And then the content is really good. I find it also, you know, I've really been working LinkedIn hard over the years. So I find so many names in the publication that I don't know about, and I go look them up, connect with them, follow their work. So I find it just from a personal career point of view and interest in AI, phenomenal source. You know, I definitely want to encourage everyone who's listening to this to access that magazine. And as I say, I'll put the links on there. Now, maybe the most exciting thing, yeah, is let's talk about the Expo, which is an amazing event, but also interesting in you know, given what the situation we're in at the moment. You seem to plan some fascinating ways of taking that amazing event virtually. So tell us about that.
we've run the event for the last 2 years. So, I mean, just to tell the people watching this film, we set out on a 6-year mission. You're never going to achieve much in the first 2 or 3 years. And I think this goes back to our conversation about change. So to create sustainable change, you have to think long term. This is why Asian industries and philosophies, they think long term. And I think what we set out to do was, first of all, just before we got anywhere near the event, it was to say, what's our vision over the next sort of 3 to 6 years? Because if we start with that in our minds, then we can start to affect change. So the event has been traditionally a face-to-face event, very much buyer, supplier, startup, investor focused. And from the very beginning, we also wanted to make the event available to young people. So we allocated a portion of tickets for free workshops. We're very pleased to announce that the diversity that we've had within those workshops has been fantastic. Some of the feedback we've had has been that they've been transformational. We actually have a 34% contingent of female engineers in that environment. So we wanted to address both the business user, the young learner, the graduate, undergraduate, as well as the startup and the investor. And that last 2 years that we've done, 2018, 2019, been a great success. Obviously this year, COVID came along, killed the events industry. We had to pivot fairly quickly. And we're actually using this year an e-conferencing platform, which allows us to replicate exactly what we've done in the traditional show, but to do it on an online way. So it's not a webinar, and it's not 3D virtual reality and goggles and all of that stuff. It's actually a dedicated e-conference. So we can do our 4 speaking tracks. We can have an expo, be there. You can tell people about your products and services. So essentially, it's the closest we can do to a real world event. But there's some massive upside because 1, you don't have to travel. 2, there is no COVID risk. 3, you can log on from anywhere in the world. It's mobile friendly. And we just feel that this year we could really break some significant ground. So our 2-day event, we're looking to do the normal show between 1,000 and 2,000 delegates. And then we're going to do a 30-day archive of the show as a learning experience for young people through our partner community. And we're hoping to get between 5,000 and 10,000 people through that side of the show. So brand new format. We're bolting on a learning experience, much wider diversity and inclusivity. And we're launching in September. So yeah, we're working
Very
hard.
exciting. And if I remember, you told me about this before, Nick. If I remember correctly, I could, as a delegate, virtually attend the different tracks, obviously, but I can also virtually, it's almost like walking to the hall of a great event, and you look at the different logos, who's exhibiting, etc. And I can virtually also connect with the different exhibitors. Was my understanding correct in that?
That's correct. Yeah. So essentially, you've got the same components that we've had at all the shows. So you've got the expo hall, which has the vendors in it who have their products that they want to tell you about. Obviously, this year the interaction is through the e-conferencing platform. But the experience is just like we're having now. You go to the stand, you let them know that you want to have a meeting, and then it fires up a video chat like we're doing right now, and then you can have one-to-one conversations with a delegate and say, this is what we do. You can then say, take that as a jumping off point for another meeting, or we can go and do a demo or something like that. But the interesting thing this year is when you normally go to a show, you get a delegate bag, and this year we give delegates have a digital bag. So as they go around, they can download information into their bag, and the vendors get notified of all these interactions. So at the end of the show, people in the expo hall get this really neat report about who interacted with their brand. And again, you can't do this kind of thing at a real world show because it's just impossible to record all the interactions. So there's some new features, there's some exciting things. And I think the online platform will give a good user experience.
Fantastic. So I can go to one of the best AI events in the world in my pajamas. That's really the selling point here.
Yeah, if you want to. Pajamas, onesies, sombrero. You can go around anonymously. Obviously, you don't have to walk around with your your face exposed all the time, I guess. But I think we, again, this technology is just like AI. This technology has been around for quite a long time. And just like Zoom, certainly that platform has gained a following. And I think what we're seeing is that we're all being trained now to interact in a slightly modified way through Zoom and Teams and all these other ways we're interacting online. And actually our event is just an extension of that. So we're hoping by the time we get to September, most people are going to be like Zoom online experts, and it'll become a very natural way of interacting. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think also people know that if they go to a 2-day show, at the end of it, you're pretty tired. You've had a great time. You've been in a hotel and met a whole bunch of people, and you've had a few drinks, and you've had some good food, and the Wi-Fi's been fine. And then you go back. And this year, we're going to try and do that same experience. It's just minus the food, minus the drinks, minus the travel. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Especially minus the travel, because I just find, I speak to at a lot of conferences globally, and the pain for me is the long flights. Is you're on your own. Yeah, you see different cities of the world, but it loses its magic after a while. So I love the idea that I can now attend almost an event daily at my leisure, and there's no travel and long flights and layovers and things involved. Nick, I just quickly before we end want to talk about the future. So I'm an optimist. I think the more I read about AI and where we're going, I start to become a bit more pessimistic. And I think, like everything humans have ever done, this will most likely really be able to serve us or really be able to destroy us. Are you optimistic or pessimistic? What do you see the future in the next few years? I know it's a lot. How long is a piece of string? Maybe kind of conversation. Because how do we know? But what's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, I think the landscape that we're in right now, and I think we also shouldn't forget about things like mobile connectivity, 5G. I mean, the internet was transformative in how people. I mean, the internet's great for two things: bringing people to people and people to information. I think with 5G, particularly with this next jump in the mobile spectrum, and a lot of the protocols and devices which are coming on board, sort of network of devices, a network of devices, streaming data. I mean, I think there's just so many transformative implications for literally every single industry vertical. So it'll see my career out for sure, this next phase. I think we have to be careful that, we look at concerns like privacy, we look at concerns like ethics, we look at precision, accuracy, and bias in these systems. I actually did my PhD in precision, accuracy, and bias in analytical systems. Nothing to do with AI, but the same principles apply.
Yes.
Do you know that you've got representative data to make an accurate prediction of X? Is the analysis of that data? A lot of people think that the analysis, the sampling bias coupled with an analysis or some other biases and inaccuracies in the system downstream just multiply these errors. And we've seen with facial recognition, a lot of organizations and institutions are saying, hang on a minute, we've got a problem here. We don't have representative data in these systems. The results are inaccurate, or certainly at a lower threshold than they should be. And the consequences are, well, in the case of arresting a suspect, if the system has said that this is a person of interest or a criminal, the implications are severe. And we need to make sure, just like in the world of software, where there's a discipline of software called safety critical software. So software that is used to control civilian aircraft, for example. It comes with a certain degree of certification and standardization, which has been built up over many years of refinement, that we don't go rushing to this bright light of AI will solve all our problems, because it won't. Again, it will solve problems by having policies that are well thought through, that will iterate over time. When we look at ethics and we look at precision and accuracy and bias in any system, what we understand the system to be today and our understanding of to apply a framework to it will change over time, and we have to iterate as we go. So as long as people are mindful of the fact that it won't be perfect, but we know what those imperfections are and we work hard to eliminate them, then I think the technology will bring some of the promise that you hear on the mainstream media. I think also there aren't enough good news stories told about this technology domain, and particularly so with good news stories of its use in Africa. Yes, the bad news stories make the headlines. That's because people like to hear bad news. That's what sells advertising space or media space or news space, whatever you want to call it. But our mission is to tell more good news stories and to promote those stories and say, hey, look, there was a problem, but actually it was solved by these two girls in this university or these guys who set this business up. And we need to showcase that. And there shouldn't be a barrier to people telling their story, which is, well, we'll tell you a story if you pay for an advert. That we need to break down that mindset. And the media landscape is changing in response. There's some changes that are happening through COVID that will be either permanent or semi-permanent. And yeah, I think we've got an exciting future, but we have to be mindful of some of these pitfalls.
Super. Nick, thank you for your time. I'm excited about the expo coming up. I'm excited about the magazine and the TV and all that, so I'll definitely be posting all of those links. And exciting to see you again, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure joining, and I hope the viewers enjoyed our talk. Thanks for having me.
Expo Africa, Africa's largest AI and 4IR B2B event, will host its 2020 conference and expo as a virtual event. Building on the success of our real-world shows and faced with the current restrictions around face-to-face events, we've decided to embark upon a new and innovative journey for our AI community and sponsors. The new virtual format has many benefits. Not only can we now reach a greater African continental audience, allowing many more delegates across the continent to attend AI Expo Africa, but an extended 30-day on-demand event will ensure greater engagement for our community, exhibitors and supporters. Added benefits like cost savings for sponsors and delegates, as well as detailed analytics for the show, ensure that AI Expo Africa has remained resilient in these times of crisis and created an innovative new way of doing business for our community.